Story 1. The horrific tale of the Jonestown Massacre. In the 1970s, the world witnessed one of the most horrifying events in modern history, the Jonestown Massacre. This tragedy unfolded under the leadership of Jim Jones, a charismatic preacher who founded the People's Temple, a religious movement that initially promoted progressive ideas, but ultimately descended into a deadly cult. Jim Jones began his ministry in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the 1950s, preaching a message of racial integration and social justice. His charisma and seemingly altruistic ideals attracted a diverse following. In the mid-1960s, he moved his congregation to California, where the People's Temple grew significantly in size and influence. Jones preached about a utopian society and warned of an impending nuclear apocalypse, which he claimed only his followers would survive. By the late 1970s, facing increased scrutiny from the media and allegations of abuse and financial fraud, Jones moved his congregation to Guyana, South America, where he promised to build a socialist paradise. This settlement, known as Jonestown, was established in the remote jungle, isolating its inhabitants from the outside world. Life in Jonestown was far from the utopia Jones had promised. The community was tightly controlled, with Jones exerting authoritarian power over every aspect of daily life. Residents were subjected to grueling labor, insufficient food, and constant surveillance. Jones's paranoia grew, and he began to preach about a revolutionary suicide as a form of protest against perceived persecution. In November 1978, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan traveled to Jonestown with a delegation to investigate the alleged human rights abuses. Initially welcomed, Ryan and his team soon realized the dire conditions within the settlement. Several members of the People's Temple sought to leave with the delegation, which angered Jones. As Ryan's group prepared to depart on November 18th, they were ambushed at the airstrip by armed temple members. Congressman Ryan and 4 others were killed. Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones called his followers to the Central Pavilion and declared that the time had come for their revolutionary suicide. Cyanide-laced flavor aid was prepared, and under Jones's orders, the poison was administered to the children first, followed by the adults. Those who resisted were forced to comply or were shot. Jones himself died of a gunshot wound, likely self-inflicted. When authorities arrived at Jonestown, they found a scene of unimaginable horror. Over 900 bodies, including children, lay scattered around the compound. The Jonestown Massacre became the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act until the September 11th attacks in 2001. It served as a grim reminder of the dangers of blind allegiance to charismatic leaders and the potential for religious and ideological extremism to lead to catastrophic outcomes. Story 2. The Twisted Life of Joseph Mengele. Joseph Mengele, often referred to as the Angel of Death, was a Nazi doctor who conducted horrifying experiments on prisoners at the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II. His actions have left a legacy of terror and are among the darkest chapters in the history of human cruelty. Mengele was born in 1911 in Germany and pursued a career in medicine and anthropology. He joined the Nazi Party and the SS in the 1930s, aligning himself with the regime's brutal ideology. In May 1943, he was assigned to Auschwitz, where he quickly became infamous for his ruthless selection process on the arrival ramp, deciding who would be sent to the gas chambers and who would be spared for forced labor or experiments. Mengele had a particular obsession with twins, whom he saw as ideal subjects for his genetic experiments. He subjected them to inhumane procedures, including unnecessary surgeries, injections of lethal substances, and exposure to diseases. His goal was to understand hereditary traits and to advance the Nazi goal of Aryan racial purity. Many twins died as a result of these experiments, and those who survived were left physically and psychologically scarred. One of Mengele's most notorious experiments involved attempts to change eye color by injecting chemicals into children's eyes. He also conducted gruesome studies on the effects of various diseases and poisons, often without any form of anesthesia. His cruelty knew no bounds. He once sewed two twins together to create conjoined twins, causing them excruciating pain and eventually leading to their deaths. As the Allies advanced toward Auschwitz in January 1945, Mengele fled the camp, taking with him his records and the identities of his victims. He evaded capture for years, using false identities and relying on a network of Nazi sympathizers. Mengele's escape took him to South America, where he lived in various countries, including Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. Despite being one of the most wanted Nazi war criminals, he managed to avoid justice until his death. Mengele's life in hiding was marked by paranoia and fear of capture. He continued to practice medicine under assumed names, but remained haunted by the specter of his past. In 1979, he died of a stroke while swimming off the coast of Brazil. It was only later confirmed that the man who had died was indeed Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death. The legacy of Joseph Mengele is one of profound evil and the capacity for human beings to commit unimaginable atrocities under the guise of scientific inquiry and racial ideology. His actions at Auschwitz remain a powerful reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the importance of remembering and learning from history to prevent such horrors from ever occurring again.